What's going on, everybody? This is Jordan Nahisi.
And I just throat goat Mo. What's up, people?
And welcome to another episode of Culture 316. This is episode 3. We are using some new technology and stuff, so bear with us. We're in a great transition period. But let's just get right. Actually, before I get right into it, I do want to thank everyone who's been tuning in to these episodes, sharing the content. You guys are greatly appreciated. We're going to be promising to give you guys more stuff coming soon in the long run. But please be sure to keep liking, subscribing, commenting, rating the podcast. Give it a 5 stars. That's how we get it up there. So without further ado, let's get right into the show. So first thing is first, NXT Heatwave went down last night, Tuesday. This is actually Wednesday. And kind of wanted to know kind of some of your takeaways from the show.
For me, I did not expect Heatwave to be as fun as it was. It was definitely banger after banger. If I had to pick out the matches that stood out the most to me, of course, I expected Santos versus Tony D'Angelo to be the biggest takeaway, which it was, and I still think it should have been the main event. However, even some of the matches that I was sleeping on, I had no interest in, like Cora versus Roxanne. I didn't care for the two of them as a concept. I didn't even care for Cora's heel turn. However, those two show the fuck out.
Absolutely.
At first, within the first hour, that to me was the it match of the night up until I saw what Santos and Angelo did. The other match that definitely stood out to me, which it's not a shocker because I feel like Carmelo Hayes always is the moment. Right. Like, he doesn't have to do very much, but him versus Vinci, whatever the fuck his name is, that match was fun. It was actually very, very fun to watch. I like that it was one of the openers to Heatwave. It was fun. It was fresh. I noticed the whole entire night, it was just a fun flow. There was not a dull moment that went on in the show. Well, actually, there was one, but we're not going to go into Quincy because who is Quincy? But definitely, I wasn't expecting 2.0 to actually impress me, but it was definitely a fun night. Let me backtrack. I normally don't give Mandy Rose her flowers, and I desperately wanted the belt to be taken off from her that night. But I was actually very much impressed with her match with Zoe. I actually was. Normally, I'm not really high on Mandy's wrestling skills, but, especially for me, since I don't watch 2.0 consistently, I'll take a week off in between watching it. I noticed that she definitely turned it on. When it came to her wrestling, she definitely turns it on. Like, she showed me that she definitely could be a powerhouse when she wants to be, that she could be aggressive, that she doesn't have to be just a pretty face. And I actually had to applaud her. Even though I didn't want her to win, I was ready for Zoe to take that belt off of her because I'm a little bit sick of this toxic attraction, reign of Mandy thing. Right. I had to give her her flowers because she definitely carried herself like a champion that night. So overall, if I had to give that whole entire, I guess you consider it like a pay-per-view, right? Would you consider it
I guess you can consider it a pay-per-view.
I guess. I would definitely probably give it like an 8 out of 10, just for how fun, how fresh, the pacing. It was a good time. I was entertained. I was thoroughly insane.
I feel that.
How about you?
I feel that. Let's give a clap for that. I don't know if you could hear the sound effect.
Oh, we got applause.
We have
now.
applause.
Oh, look at us.
It's over. But I would actually align with that. I think it was an 8 out of 10 as well. There were a couple of things that I had noticed, some takeaways from just the show in general, as well as kind of match for match, I would say, like things that I pulled away from that. And then the overall message that NXT Heatwave kind of sent to me. The number one thing that I noticed was Paul Heyman doing the introduction of Heatwave. So that to me, that was the number one thing that stood out to me. For those of you who are unaware, Heatwave is actually a ECW pay-per-view. Heatwave was something that was produced by ECW. So the fact that Paul Heyman was integrated into that was definitely a nostalgia-based move. And I think it was perfect. And that, I think, brings me to one of my first points, is that I think that NXT is going to start being the home of a lot of WCW and ECW's intellectual property. We're going to see that as a consistent thing between, them doing the Great American Bash, which was a WCW pay-per-view. Obviously, War Games was a WCW thing, and now we're getting Heatwave. I can see WWE using NXT as kind of like their funnel for the intellectual property that they've acquired over the years being utilized. And I think that it's a very smart thing because, a lot of the times we talk about a lot of old acts in WWE who would be used as draws for WWE, kind of being controversial and have murky pasts, but they're constantly being used for nostalgia purposes. But now they have a way to kind of incur that nostalgia without necessarily having to be controversial. So I think that that's a good move. The second thing that I noticed was that when you were talking about Cora Jade, I think she's being positioned as an AJ Lee Page-esque character. Just this very dark, aggressive, very moody, but she's doing it in a way that I think that it's refreshing and it's fresh, and I really, really, really like it and enjoy it. I was able to watch the match with Roxanne last night, and Roxanne is fantastic, by the way. She's so good. She's so clean and fluid in the ring, and she's so young. And it's I feel like when I watch her, it's kind of like how I felt when I watched like Tyler Bate or Pete Dunne for the first time. It's like she's a super young, technically sound wrestler, and you can tell that like the sky is going to be the limit for her. So I'm very, very excited to see where they go with that. And I feel like this is not going to be the last time that Cora and Roxanne cross paths. I think that Cora is going to be the one that takes the belt off of Mandy.
Oh, I just want to make a quick introduction. Someone called this out on Twitter, and I didn't even notice it. I like how you made that connection with Cora, emulating a little bit of AJ Lee.
Yeah.
Someone made a very good point on Twitter about how Roxanne actually did the page turner. No one actually
I didn't even
that.
peep that.
So, yeah, I had to look it up, and I'm so happy you just brought that up because, you're bringing up AJ Lee. Paige was one of the foundations to 1.0.
Right, absolutely.
You know what I mean? So I love the fact that they involved that inside of the match or whatever. Because at first when I was looking at both Cora and Roxanne, I was looking at them as both being replications of AJ, which kind of turned me off about them. But I like that she's paying homage to Paige without necessarily being Paige. I feel like out of the two, Roxanne just have her own character. Cora as a heel now, what I could appreciate is she is coming to her own. She definitely fits better as a heel. She's not as cringe. I'm so happy she got rid of the Avril Lavigne skater boy.
Right, I hated that.
Thing. That skateboard had to go, child. I was sick of it. But as a heel, I love it. I love it. I love the way she carries herself. I love her aggression. I like the way she tells a story in the ring while she's a heel. I don't know why, but she just tends to just do everything better, more fluently, more naturally. I definitely had to give it to them. But yes, moving on.
I think it's instincts, right? I think it's her heel instincts are probably higher than her face instincts. And that's a good thing as well, being able to play towards your strengths. Another thing that I noticed, and this is my second to last point, Legado is going to the main roster. There's absolutely no way in hell that these guys are not going to the main roster. I think that they're main roster ready. As a faction, I think that they're probably one of the strongest, if not the strongest, in the current NXT 2.0 product. And I feel like this is a good way of him getting written off of NXT. But just I was watching the entrance, the presence that Santos has is just like, yes. And somebody on Twitter said it. They found their next Latin America superstar. You know what I mean? I feel like they were at first, obviously you have the greats, you have Ray, you have Dominic kind of coming up in the ranks, but they had a couple that missed, like Alberto Del Rio, right? Like he was a guy that WWE put a rocket on, and that fell by the wayside, for the right reasons, because he needed to get packed up out of there for what he was doing. But I think that they found their guy in Santos. I feel like Legado is going to the main roster. I feel like they're going to be on SmackDown as opposed to Raw, but I do see them going to the main roster in the near future. So that was what I pulled away from that. And now we can talk about the ending.
Yeah, just interject.
Go ahead.
Well, can I just interject a
Go
little
ahead.
bit with him? Just because I love him so much, and it made me mad that Vince had fumbled the bag with Andrade, because I was thinking of how much of a banger that we could get with Santos versus Andrade if he was still sticking around. I also was thinking about how good of a match I would love to see with Santos versus Ali. I think that's definitely a banger. But also, I couldn't help but be pissed off about Dominic's existence, because I think that if Ray was solo and by himself, that would be one of the coolest ways, or one of the coolest feuds to set up Santos when he comes onto the main roster. Me personally,
I think it's
like, I felt like
keep going.
No, it's just that you have someone deemed a legend already in 2.0 coming up against, like, literally, like, Ray's like worshipped as a Mexican, like, god.
Literally.
You know what I mean? I think it'd be really interesting. I think it'd be really cool, just because the feud kind of writes itself, to have the legend versus, you know, the god of wrestling in Mexico.
Absolutely.
But again, I feel like Dominic's kind of in the way. I don't hate him. I just kind of wish, you know, he kind of went off to the side and let Ray do a few more things with some up and coming superstars, instead of having him, you know, tag along as a sidekick. But that's just something I wanted to just get off my chest, because there's so much you could do with him. Like, it's like, all right, you failed me with Andrade. Please do not fail me with this man, because
he's money.
He's delivering.
He's money.
Yes.
He's money.
Yes. Yes. The fans are going to love him. Even the people who don't like watch 2.0 now, when they see him on the main roster, they're going to gravitate towards that, like, very quickly. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I just wanted to get that off my chest.
And rightfully so. I was going to say, I feel like they were able to plant a little bit of seeds when Ray did his little visit in 2.0. There was like a little backstage segment that they had, so they can go somewhere with that. Now, I definitely wanted to touch on the ending, because you were like, Twitter was going off about it. I'm going to say this. I like the ending. Because
Likewise.
I am here for a Worlds Collide 2. For those of you who are not aware, Worlds Collide was a pay-per-view that NXT and NXT UK did a couple years ago for Survivor Series weekend, and it was fantastic. The only thing that was like a hiccup to me was NXT UK is doing a NXT UK championship tournament, and literally just got underway. The brackets have just been filled, and then Tyler walks onto NXT as the NXT UK championship, and is like, well, we don't have to guess who won the tournament. But like Braun Breaker versus Tyler Bate, I think can be a banger. And between Bea Priestley doing her backstage segment, Blair Davenport, I think we're gonna see NXT versus NXT UK Worlds Collide, especially with Hunter in the mix now, and especially with Sean running NXT UK. So I definitely see that pay-per-view, and that's the reason why it excited me. Not necessarily because of, oh, well, you know, the tournament and this, that, and the third. Just the fact that can be a thing again is attractive to me. Because at first I thought that NXT UK was going to disappear, especially after the speaking out, you know, allegations, and like that roster got gutted. So at first I thought they were done for, but like seeing this pay-per-view gives me hope, because I feel like there are a lot of good matches. Hopefully we get a chance to see the British rounds in the US, because I know you haven't seen that, how the NXT UK does the rounds. So good. So damn good. So
how does that work?
So it's kind of like I think it's like 10 rounds, 3 minutes, or 10 rounds, like a minute and 30 per round. And it's kind of like I'm trying to figure out a way to say it. So essentially, obviously you win the round. You can win it by pinfall or submission, but like also there are scorers who can rate each round. So if there isn't a pinfall or a submission, there's still like a winner of the round. But it like they're like, depending on who's in the match will depend on the flow and the story of it. Because you can do something illegal in the first round, right? but it could lead to you having a win in the second round or a win in the third round. And so it's a very, very interesting kind of method and flow. It's very, very hard to explain. I'm missing some details. I'm putting that out there right now. I'm definitely missing some details.
No, it's fine. No, I get where you're coming from.
But it's
kind of merging like 3 different matches in my head.
Exactly. But it
sounds a little bit like a gauntlet, but it's timed.
Right. But it's only 2 people. And it's only 2 people though. But I like it though. I like it. It's different. It's definitely different. I would love to see an American competitor kind of compete in one of those style of matches because it's very, very traditional British wrestling. So that was what I got from it. How did you feel?
I had to watch.
How did you feel about the ending of the show?
The ending of the show or the ending of the match?
Ending,
Sorry.
I would. You know what? I would say the ending of. I'll say show. Ending of the show.
Okay, because I'll be honest, when I saw Quincy, I checked out mentally. Because there was like 10 minutes left, and I saw this man on my screen, so I'm like, oh, like, please don't tell me this man's going to end the show, because his last match was terrible to me. But I thought that they didn't choose the right ending for the show. Like I said, I had it play in the background, so I didn't even see who won. Right. But they had like momentum going throughout the whole entire show, and then that happened, and I don't feel like that was the right choice. I understand it's because it's your world title, it's your biggest title for your show, that it should on paper go on last. But I personally felt with the way they had put basically all their budget into Santos and D'Angelo, that should have just ended the night, and I think everyone would have been fine with it. Like, you know, they had put so much effort into just the video packages, making it feel serious. Like, that was just a few the entire night that I think everyone wants to pay attention to. And I felt like they should have definitely swapped spaces and just left it on that. Right. Because now the cliffhanger for the crowd is, does this guy go to the main roster? If so, how soon? How are they going to introduce him? Now, do they have a bad match from like the clips that I saw? No. Just, again, compared to everything else that I saw, yeah, definitely wasn't a match that was like, you know, had a alluring effect on me.
I could see that. I could definitely see that. Yeah, I could definitely see that. I do think that the Santos D'Angelo match was definitely main event worthy. I think it was just the cliffhanger for a possible NXT UK match. I think was I don't want to say it was a greater cliffhanger, but I think it was a more intriguing long-term cliffhanger as far as what's happening within the NXT world. But you know, hey, do you want to move on?
Maybe I'm biased because I don't really watch UK as much. Like, I don't dislike UK. It's just that it, you know, for the average person that tries to keep up with 3 to 4 shows a week, it's very easy to kind of put UK on the back burner. I'll try to keep up with a pay-per-view here and there, and they have some great matches, some great talent. Like I said, I popped like crazy when I saw Bea Priestley show up. You know, so you do make a good point, because I think Hunter just wants to remind people that they exist again, because Vince didn't put any effort, and so that when these people came on to 2.0, or even on 1.0, like when Toni Storm came in, like I think a lot of people were confused or they didn't really know how to take her because they didn't watch the actually, no, I don't want anyone to spoil that, but they didn't watch where she came from. They didn't watch where a few other people like Rhea Ripley came from. I agree with that. But no, I totally get your point.
I agree with that for sure. But let us move on. So obviously there was a full week of shows. Raw, SmackDown, everything in between. Kind of wanted to get into like some quick analysis about the shows, what you noticed, what were some takeaways, what things stood out to you about each show, especially since you're a prophet now, right? You literally called the Hit Row return, and the next thing you know, the vibe is back. So I definitely wanted to know your takeaways from SmackDown, Raw, all of that.
Oh my God. Well, first, can we just jump into Hit Row?
Absolutely.
Just because, I was just I was just so excited. Like, honestly, I didn't expect for them to show up like literally 5 days after I just said on the mic that they're going to show up. But I love the way that they introduced them. I love that the pop that they got from the crowd was so electrifying. They came out and I feel like they almost proved everyone wrong. They came in with a purpose and they wanted to show everyone that they didn't need a fourth person in order to have this faction going, that they could hold their own. I thought their tag team match was fun. It was fresh. And I love the way that they closed it out when they were saying the original
OG3.
OGs.
Yeah.
I feel like, again, they were trying to make a point that, yeah, we're not getting a fourth person anytime soon. We're doing us. You know, we came in as a trio. We gonna ride as a trio. And then it almost made me think to myself for a moment just how much what were their names? Enzo
and Cass.
And Big Cass. Yeah. For some reason, my brain made a connection to them with the way they had the crowd wrapped around around their fingers. I'm like, yeah, they're definitely going to be like that for at least Friday night. You know what I mean? They're definitely going to be they're definitely going to be a group where we're going to see a lot more promos for them. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm
You're
sorry.
good.
I'm
No,
I'm a little bit tired
listen,
now. So
listen. It's 8 on the west, 8 some on the West Coast. So I get it. I was gonna say I agree with the Hit Row analysis. I think that they were definitely one of the highlights of the show. Being able to bring them in, the entrance, obviously fire. Like I just loved their match, their flow, their chemistry. Like they very much remind me of like the cool kids in high school that's just like posted up, like, you know, that like they're the cool kids, and I like that vibe. And I just like that the fact that they've kind of built this fan base and this allure even through their absence, right? Like people wanted them back, and so I think that they're gonna definitely do damage. I see multiple tag team title reigns in their future, and I think that ultimately is going to lead to a deeper tag team division in WWE as a whole, but definitely on SmackDown. I definitely want to see how a LDF versus Hit Row on SmackDown would translate into. I think that's going to be a banger of a feud, a banger of a match. So I'm really, really excited about Hit Row. I would say another highlight of that show was the Intercontinental Championship match. Good God. They main evented the show, and rightfully so. They literally stole the show. I think they stole the show, in my opinion. That they got 25 minutes as a mid-card title, which I don't think that we have seen in a long time. And then Gunter cut this promo online afterward talking about the prestige, and it was like, this feels important again. This feels super important again, and I love it because the truth of the matter is that not everybody can be world champion. Not everybody can be the WWE, undisputed WWE Universal Champion. And I think that one of the biggest flaws that WWE had when it was under Vince's reign, especially when Brock was the champion, he was absent, was now immediately assigning prestige to the Intercontinental and the U.S. Championship because the WWE or the World Heavyweight Championship wasn't around. So the fact that they're building prestige while the champion is still active, while the champion is still showing up, it's only going to do wonders for them in the long term because now they don't have to rush prestige. It's like, okay, well, if you ain't here, we got these titles here, and they are also just as important. And I feel like Gunter is a great champion. I think that he puts on great matches. I love his presence, in incredible shape. Like, I'm just very, very, very excited to see where this goes in the future. So I think that was kind of like my analysis on SmackDown. Hit Row and the Intercontinental Championship were definitely the highlights of that show.
Did you feel like you got a little bit of vintage Nakamura in that match too?
I did. I feel like we got strong style Nakamura. And I think that was important. And I think that was very intentional. I feel like, part of the reason why Shinsuke was brought over to WWE was because of what he was doing in New Japan Pro Wrestling and the foundation and the legacy that he left behind. And I noticed that, Shinsuke being in this match was definitely an intentional decision because one of the last things that Shinsuke did in New Japan Pro Wrestling was build the prestige of the IWGP Intercontinental Championship. So I feel like him being put in this picture kind of brought him back to a place where I'm not the rock star. I'm not the guy who says one word. I'm not the guy who does the little, 5Gs in the middle of the ring. No. I'm the king of strong style. And I feel like the king of strong style is back. And I love that. And I love that for him.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to add, not just with him, but everybody looked like they were having more fun in the ring. That's one big thing I noticed from both Raw and SmackDown. Like the part that popped me during Nakamura's match was when he went up to he came out the ring and he yelled out 9 really loud. So what was that guy's name? I'm sorry, I forget. Gunther's partner.
I forgot his name. Ludwig. Is this Ludwig?
Yeah, he just pulled one of his strong style moves, slid from underneath Gunther's legs, and then just went up to him and yelled 9. And then just went back into the ring. I was like, he's having way too much fun.
Yeah.
That makes me. But I'm like, I love that. I love that. Like all the wrestlers that come in, they have more energy during their matches. I felt like when, if you were to compare from like a month ago to now, a lot of the people were just kind of doing everything automated as if it was just rehearsed, and they're trying to get through these 2 to 15 minutes. But again, like I noticed that, like, and it shows in their faces, it shows in their energy, because like now they have more pull. They could kind of do what they want and be who they want to be. And I actually love that for them, because it makes me feel excited as a fan to watch when I see that, the talents themselves are having a good time and that they have free reign.
Absolutely.
Like now the world is their oyster. They could like literally take their character and their story as far as they want, because they're not constricted to like a small script or being told that they can only condense their moveset into a few moves for the audience or whatever. So that's just one thing I really love. That was like definitely my biggest takeaway from both Raw and SmackDown.
I agree with that. I was going to say, now speaking of Raw, we can go into that just a little bit, because obviously going from SmackDown into Raw, at the end of SmackDown, it was announced that it was going to be Bobby Lashley versus AJ Styles for the U.S. title. That match delivered. Once again, another 20 to 25 minute match. Both guys felt like they had something to prove. Even the video packages kind of outlined the fact that these guys are both future Hall of Famers. These guys already have championships. These guys are already world traveled. And so this is the first time ever that they're meeting in the ring. And I'm like, that's a great way to build prestige. It's like, this is a first time matchup. You got two guys who are, powerhouses, great at what they do. And I feel like they didn't disappoint. I think it was a great match. Now, the question is, how do they top that? Obviously, Bobby retained. I want to see who the next challenger is, who's going to step up. But outside of that, there were a lot of interesting things that were happening on Raw. And I wanted to know if you had gotten any big takeaways from what you saw on Raw.
Oh, Kevin Owens was my biggest takeaway.
Yes.
I actually love their callback with him and Drew McIntyre from 1.0. I love the fact that they led the promos with that, and that Kevin Owens just made it blatantly known that like the old him is coming back, and he's definitely gonna be fighting for title belts this time. I don't think he held a title belt in like 5 years. And they definitely put on a banger themselves. And at first I actually was upset with the ending. I was just like, why would they have that end in interference? A match that good and long should have definitely had a winner. But then I'm like, wait, no, I'm thinking like Vince, because Vince would have definitely had one of them lose and they had a rematch or whatnot, and then put it on a pay-per-view or whatnot. And you can't have two people been built up just like that in one promo, making references to the banger they had put on years ago, and then have one of them immediately lose and then establish that this person is more dominant than this person. Right. So when I thought about it further, I'm like, all right, you know what? That was a clever call, because now I'm interested in seeing what more do these people have to bring to the table, because I haven't cared for – I always care about Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens, he's he's a fascinating human being because he'll take any script or any position that he's in and find a way to be funny, entertaining, relevant, or whatnot, even if he doesn't have a belt on him. Drew has been a bit of a disappointment to me, not because that he's bad at his job. It's just his booking has been so ass that I just have a hard time investing into him the way I was invested in like 2018 and prior. So I love this for him because it's definitely going to build his stocks again.
Absolutely.
To me, that was just like the funnest match of the night for me personally.
I definitely agree with that. I actually want like to kind of align with you. I agree with the whole, like, I didn't know why it was booked the way that it was booked, but I felt like if this is a new Kevin Owens, he has to be kept strong. And I feel like the booking that they did on this definitely kept him strong, definitely kept him kind of like, this is a force to be reckoned with. And if you noticed, he was really the only one that kind of walked away on his own accord, right? Like, he was the one that stunned everybody, said, you owe me one. And that was an interesting thing because who is involved in a bloodline storyline? Sami Zayn. So are we going to see a reunion? And he mentioned that he can go for the tag belts. Are we going to see them become a tag team? Which I definitely wouldn't mind. But yeah, I think that was a really good booking decision in hindsight because it kept him looking strong. I feel like another thing that I noticed was still that WWE, even though Hunter's kind of like having an influence and he's taking control and there's going to be more creative freedom, I feel like WWE is still going to be a place where the big guys, the larger men, are going to be more prevalent. I feel like they're not going to get away from that. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's okay. I just feel like it's going to, like, they can be big and whatever, but they have to have a certain nuance and a certain edge to them. They can't just be, you know what I mean? Just big. Like, that can't be their personality trait. And so that was another thing that I kind of took.
I feel like it's in any wrestling company.
Right. That was another thing that I kind of took away from that. And I just love how they continue to plant seeds for long-term storytelling. The hand on the wall in that backstage segment. Did you see that? It was on Twitter.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. It was a very, like, is this a Bray Wyatt tease? So I'm very, very interested in knowing what's to come. I feel like there were a lot of seeds planted, and I think that was a very, 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 very intentional, and I think it was a great thing to do. I was going to say, did you have any other takeaways from Raw?
I guess Bayley. Bayley was on SmackDown.
She's on Raw.
I feel like I see them bouncing back and forth, like with
the faction, yeah.
But definitely Bayley. Yes, definitely Bayley because, like, I admire her so much now from where she has definitely came up from in NXT. I know a lot of people were very high on her and Sasha, and I will always give her credit for what she has contributed for the women with that match at TakeOver Brooklyn. That match is iconic. That match definitely set a foundation and a pace for women incoming forward, you know, to be able to be taken more seriously. But as far as Bayley herself, it's just, her evolution is just so beautiful to me. Because when I viewed her in comparison to the rest of the other four horsewomen, I kind of thought that I don't want to say she didn't belong, but it's just that she was the least advanced to me.
Absolutely.
Her character was very stale, very awkward. It was a character that only could resonate with a small audience, children.
Yeah.
She was very awkward on the mic compared to the rest, and Charlotte can't talk for shit, so that says a lot. Her moveset wasn't bad because Bayley can definitely wrestle. However, a lot of her moves aren't as interesting or doesn't get as much pops.
Yeah.
As opposed to what Becky, Charlotte, and Sasha bring out in the ring. I mean, Charlotte, when you think of Charlotte, you think of, yes, her finisher, but you think about when she could do a beautiful Spanish fly, or her her 50-50 moonsaults. I'll say that because sometimes they hit, sometimes they
Not
don't.
her D+ moonsault.
Sasha, she's so innovative. Wow.
Not her D+ moonsault. Sis gave her a 50-50. I'm weak.
It's because sometimes she lands it and then sometimes she doesn't. I don't know what's going on with Charlotte and the moonsaults. I don't know if it was the implants throwing off the balance or
Probably
something,
was.
bro.
Yeah.
But every time she did,
Probably was.
every time she did it, it like she just didn't land correctly, or she had like this much space from her from her opponent.
Right.
But anyways, let me get off of Charlotte because I'll drag her for the next 30 minutes if you let me. Back to Bayley. It's just, it seemed as if she didn't even connect to her own character when she was the hugger.
Yeah.
And I couldn't even connect to her. It made it so much easier to just put her aside next to Sasha and just make her a lackey. Because again, Sasha had a personality that could, engage with little girls that want to be like Sasha, but even adults, because she has a very mature like character.
Right.
You know what I mean? That reminds you of a lot of things.
Yeah.
With Bayley, like I said, it was confined to a small audience. Yeah. So when she had like this heel turn back around 2019, I want to say 2019 going to 2020, yeah. And she kind of went from that to this dramatic haircut and then this whole slightly emo phase or whatnot. First, like I said, I didn't want to believe in her at first because she gave me a whole lot of nothing. Right. And I don't want to completely blame her. It sounds like I'm dragging her to filth. I don't want to completely blame her because she was white hot in 1.0, and then Vince decided that he just wanted to ruin her with this Alexa Bliss, This Is Your Life.
That was disgusting.
Storyline segment. It was disgusting. It was crickets the entire time. And Bliss was trying her absolute hardest to work with this. And again, it was just crickets and it was awkward. And it's just like, why are you doing this to Bayley? Like, right. Come on. Like, she literally put the woman on the map and you're just going to sit here and bury her. Now we're going to look at her as a joke. So to see her do this in 2019, and then for her to basically take over the pandemic, right. And hold down the women with
her
Sasha.
And Sasha, that was their
She definitely showed us that she could hold.
That was their era.
Yes,
that was their era.
Definitely. Yeah, I know a lot of people have that's a whole polarizing topic in their own, it's because they were holding all the belts and everyone thought they were hogging everything. Right. Like, no, I think that they most definitely deserve that. I think Bayley most definitely deserved that because she sacrificed herself to this company and she got chewed out, mm-hmm. And people didn't want to take her seriously. And we watched her from there on slowly evolve with her character from going from being emo to being obnoxious, but so obnoxious that it was fun. You know what I mean? That's when she just randomly started with this whole ding dong hello thing, and it just stuck with us. And then she slowly moved on to being almost like a Joker-like character.
Yeah.
Not quite like where she was losing her mind like Becky, but she was still delusional.
Yeah, still maniacal.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And what I love watching about her is that over time I got to watch her come into her own and be comfortable with herself and be comfortable in her own skin. Because you could tell when she had that damn ponytail, the side ponytail on her head and whatnot, that she wasn't really comfortable or believing in herself. Yeah. But when she is in this role, whether she was a tweener or a heel, she was very much comfortable with herself.
Yeah.
So I love that for her. And her character has been a slow development.
Yeah. To
where I have watched her add more moves. She has definitely added more moves to her moveset, changed up her finisher, got more... Sorry, I have an error coming up on my screen.
You're good.
She has gotten more comfortable speaking on the mic. Before she would be so meek and timid and she would almost stutter.
Right. Like
now she says everything with her full chest, which I love.
Full chest.
Yes. And, I almost felt bad for her during that time she got injured and she was supposed to have that I Quit match with Bayley because she literally was riding off of this crazy momentum. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I knew that, and we had so many different like predictions for like how that match was going to go. Mm-hmm. Like we were thinking like, is that going to be the match where she decides to go full on heel and cut Bianca's braid or whatnot? Right. What happens when Bayley loses? What's she going to do? She came back and she innovated herself, and we watched her go from being a lackey. We could never talk about Bayley without talking about Sasha. We went from talking about her as basically being a lackey to now watching her change up her look, go with this red hair, this whole outfit change, and she's a leader of a faction, and we're all just going with it, and we just love it. Now we could actually just think of Bayley just as herself, and not have to constantly think about Bayley and Sasha. You know what I mean? So, and it's funny because, like I said, if you would have asked me, what do you think about Bayley about 3-4 years ago? I'm like, Bayley, I mean, she's okay. She's all right, you know. No, now if people would have me like rank the 4 horsewomen, I definitely would put Bayley either neck and neck with Sasha or right behind Sasha, because she definitely came into her own.
Absolutely.
And I love that for her, and I can't wait to see the way Hunter's going to book her.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
What do you think about her evolution?
So I think that Bayley, when she kind of came from NXT to the main roster, had good moments. But I feel like as she kind of got deep into the main roster, I would say about 4 to 6 months after she kind of made her transition from NXT and she was still in her I'm a hugger character, I think she outgrew the character because she outgrew that version of, you know, of Bayley. And that's okay. That happens as people. We outgrow, you know, old things about us. But I feel like she was kind of kept there because Vince saw her as foil for everybody else. She essentially elevated all of the Vince faves. Alexa, Charlotte. Yeah. So I feel like she was kind of kept in that box intentionally, not because she wanted to be there, but because of what she can do for other people. I felt like there was a point in time where, you know, even before the heel change or the character change and the heel turn, she was probably the most decorated out of all the 4 horsewomen, but I don't feel like it was because she deserved it. I feel like it was because it was needed for her. Like, she needed the belt. You know how we talk about, like, with guys, it's like, oh, such and such needs the belt. I feel like Bayley at a certain point needed the belt in order to kind of keep her in the same conversation as a Sasha, as a Charlotte, as a Becky. Even though she was just as gifted, if not more gifted than some of them, she had to be given the accolades in order to be like, nah, I'm still just as good. But I feel like, obviously, with the heel turn, the dramatic haircut, as you said, it really elevated her to a new level. And I think that it brought some stuff out of her that she was looking to bring out of her. I think it was a different side to her. And I feel like that was always there. She just didn't know how to express it. And then as we go into her as being a faction leader, I think she's the only one of the 4 horsewomen that have led a faction. Now that I think about it, I don't think Sasha has led a faction. I don't think Becky has led a faction.
No, but what about Team Bad? Did she lead?
They were a part of it. They were a part of it. I think they were a part of it. Like, I feel like PCB, right? Paige was like the mentor. I feel like in Team Bad, I feel like Naomi was the mentor. And then I feel like, I feel like they were like in the factions, but they weren't leading it. You know what I mean? So I don't think that. Yeah,
and they tried it with Sasha, and they tried it one time with Sasha with Zelina and Carmella, but then they kind of just dropped it for some weird reason, and they just became a tag team.
Right. Even though that
technically, you're right.
Even though that could have been a fire faction, but I think Bayley is the first person out of the 4 horsewomen to lead a faction, and that adds a whole different layer of credibility to her character. So I think that her evolution is very, very awe-inspiring. I think that it's dope. So I think, she just got more comfortable with herself. I think that she kind of grew into herself, as you said. And I'm eager to kind of see where she goes with Kai and Io, because I feel like that's been the common denominator for both of them. I feel like this run with her as a faction leader is ultimately going to determine Bayley's legacy, because honestly, you have people under your wing who, as far as in-ring talent, are comparable to you. I feel like Kai is a great in-ring talent. I feel like Io, obviously great, phenomenal in-ring talent, but their weaknesses are your strength. You are better on the mic than they are. You can lead the charge as a leader, as a mentor, as a mouthpiece for both of them. So I feel like her as a faction leader is ultimately going to determine the trajectory of her career and her legacy overall. That's how I feel about Bayley's kind of evolution, if you will. And I think that Hunter is going to let them run roughshod, and I'm very, very much looking forward to that. So I'm super happy for her. So going from that, with Hunter in charge, if we're on the topic of the women, with Hunter in charge, do you see the return of the Mae Young Classic and Evolution 2? And do you think that this is something that can lead to possibly some cross-promotional work for WWE and other wrestling companies?
Oh, absolutely. Like, one thing I love about Hunter is that just as much as he is for the men, he is and for the mid cards, he's definitely here for the women.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that whole Mae Young Classic was definitely a Triple H project.
Mm-hmm.
I had so much fun watching both the first one and second one because it introduced me to names I never heard of from promotions I never thought about, because I always been confined to just listening and to watching WWE. You know, like we seen Big Swole come from there. We saw Tony Storm, Rhea Ripley, Io Shirai was part of that. Kairi Sane was part of that. Just so many names, and Hunter loves going fishing in the indies because he appreciates the indies. I love that. I know Vince was trying to shy away from it. You know, about a year ago, we got some news about how they're trying to shy away from that. And they're trying to get, you know, outside athletes and stuff like that, which that's fine and dandy. But I love the fact that, you know, Hunter wants to get faces more shine that are trying to come up in the indies, and they are putting in the work and the effort. And he sees a vision in them that he wants to bring to the WWE and make them bigger than life.
Absolutely.
So, I would absolutely love it and adore if they had a Mae Young Classic. I think that would be their third season for it.
Yep.
And I mean, Evolution has been a talk since the very first pay-per-view that they had, which again, that's another polarizing topic because a lot of people are saying that there was empty seats during the show, that no one really cared for it, that it didn't get that many views. Listen, I worked at fucking Evolution that day doing security, bitch. I could tell you that the crowd was loud the entire night. They loved it and they ate that shit the fuck up.
Right.
And so did I. You know, and I would love to see I would love to see more names being brought back, and I feel like more people would be more comfortable coming back. Like, I know a lot of people have been begging for Melina to come back, especially ever since we saw that face-to-face thing with her and Sasha. And
at the Rumble.
Oh my God, that was criminal. The way they just bought her. That was criminal, the way they had that woman come out with this extravagant entrance that we haven't seen in years. She did this whole split for us, and they just had her tossed out in like, what, 5 to 10 seconds?
2.5, yeah.
Yeah, and she's literally been saying publicly that she would love to come back.
Right. Like, she hasn't been hiding. She hasn't been shying away from anything. I would love to see, like, legends like Melina come back. I would love to see Jazz come back. Like, I'd be elated. I would pop if I had got Bianca versus Jazz. That would be crazy.
I don't care what the match or the stipulations are. Give me Bianca versus Jazz, and I will scream. Or you can make it a triple threat and throw in Naomi.
Right.
I would scream. That
would be
oh my God.
fire. Are you kidding me?
Oh my. Yes.
That would be fire.
Yes. And I feel like some of these people. Yes, and I feel like so many like names want to come back, but they just didn't like the way the company was being ran, so they don't want to tarnish their own names.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Maybe this might be a chance for us to finally get Trish versus Sasha. You know, that's the match that everyone wants to see, not versus Charlotte.
Not versus Charlotte,
you know, I wanted Lita versus Bayley over Becky, and I like Becky, but I really want to see that. Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Picking up what I'm throwing down?
I'm picking it up. I'm picking it up.
Like,
yeah. Oh yeah. I like this. Lita versus
like
Bayley.
I feel like yes. Like I'm not trying to tarnish what, you know, Lita did with Becky, because you know what, it took a lot for her to want to come back.
Absolutely.
And it was very last minute that they threw her Becky, from what I was reading about.
Right.
They invited her to the Royal Rumble, and they literally asked her basically that same day, like, hey, you want to work this angle with Becky? So I understand, like, you know what I mean? Like, she did try her best. She put on a great match, but the feud that definitely would have been that there was when it went down in the history books would definitely be Bayley versus Lita. Like, if I don't get that, I'm gonna be mad. I'm gonna be very mad, because like with the way Bayley has been investing into her character. Oh my God. Like, I know that Lita's mic skills have never really been there to begin with, but I could definitely see her pulling something out of Lita with this little psychotic, delusional, I'm better than you character. Like, I would just, but like Hunter's mind, like I said, it's It's freaking amazing.
Absolutely.
So I can only imagine what he would do if he was the one solely booking Evolution this time around, you know?
Absolutely.
What is your take on it?
I definitely, as you said, I see both events returning with between the Mae Young Classic and Evolution 2. I would love for Evolution 2 to be in New York again. I would also wonder to see if it would be in Nassau Coliseum or if it would be in UBS, because
they shouldn't do it in Nassau.
In Nassau, right? Yeah. So I mean, but that's to be, the
crowd sucks.
That's to be determined. But you're good. Yeah, you're good. I personally think that both events are it's more than possible that both events can return. I think that the Mae Young Classic, in hindsight, really set the tone for women's wrestling in the years to follow, because anybody was involved in that tournament in some way, shape, or form. Even down to the confrontation of the 2 4 horsewomen was at the Mae Young Classic. And we've been talking about wanting that match for a while now, between Bianca Belair, that's where we first discovered her, Io Shirai. You know, a lot of people were introduced to Toni Storm, Rhea Ripley, and these are women, you know, within WWE and outside of WWE are considered at the top of their craft and at the top of their respective companies. So I think that another Mae Young Classic is imminent. I would be very, very curious to see what they would do with it. I do think that it will be with a new crop of people. Hunter is very, very big on get rid of the old, let's get in with the new. So I feel like if we do another Mae Young Classic, I feel like it would be a bunch of people that we probably don't know. I think and I think that's going to be the most exciting part about it. As far as an Evolution 2 is concerned, I agree with you. I feel like all of those dream matches are more than possible of happening, and they need to happen. The Lita versus Bayley really just shook me. Like, I really got like goosebumps right now, because I feel like what happened in the past 5 years when it came to the 4 horsewomen and WWE's legends, I think that because Vince was in control, you saw him lean towards his favorites as opposed to what the fans really wanted. Because Sasha versus Trish was something that the fans wanted, but they wanted to give Trish versus Charlotte, and it was Trish versus Charlotte and Trish versus Alexa, and like they wanted to do all these people that nobody was really, really checking for or asking for. But now, because Hunter is in charge, I think that we're gonna see everything that we want to see, especially out of these women. And Lita, with the Lita Becky match, like, Lita left on good terms. So I think that they're more than open to bringing her back and integrating her into Evolution 2. Now, I think that the interesting part is if there will be some cross promotional work, because I don't think that WWE will work with AEW to bring in women talent, because honestly, as much as I love Hunter going to recruit. Hunter's going to recruit. And if there are AEW talents that come into that WWE Performance Center, you know he's rolling out the red carpet. You know, hey, Tony, it's been a while, sis. How's Tony over there treating you? Oh, he got you going for the AEW Dark World Women's Championship? Nah, well, I wouldn't do you like that. I wouldn't do you like that, sis. You know it wasn't. You know the vibes. Yo, when you was in NXT UK, I had you. You was that girl, but I don't want to disrupt your TBS time. So, but Tony knows that. Tony knows that Hunter is a recruiter. And so if AEW talents go to WWE, even if he locks them down in a multi-year contract, a girl like a Ruby Soho is going to want to go back. A woman like a Toni Storm is going to want to go back. Even some of the newer women. Oh, you don't think that Hunter has eyes for Jade? Are you kidding me?
Oh my God. Imagine what he would do with Jade.
Hunter, Jade under Hunter's reign, and then you have Bianca and Naomi over, don't get me started.
That's a money match.
So that's a money match. Those are money matches.
Right,
so I don't think that we're going to see cross promotional work between WWE and AEW when it comes to some of the women, because Tony knows that Hunter's going to recruit. And now I do see Impact Wrestling getting involved. I do see Jordan Grace getting involved. I do see Taya possibly getting involved. I do see Chelsea Green, Deonna Purrazzo. I see them girls getting involved. Ooh, and I think that they would be, I think that they both love where they work, but I think that they can be an asset to the tournament. And so I think that Hunter would be more than obliged to bring some of those women in if there was another Mae Young Classic. And I think that it's something that could benefit both sides. You know what I mean? Impact seems to be getting along with everybody these days. Impact, and I can go on about Impact, but I'm not going to do it this episode. But
yes, we can.
Oh,
but
all right. Say less. We're going to close this out, and I'm going to talk about that. But yeah,
go ahead.
But I do see some cross promotional work happening between WWE and Impact, not so much WWE and AEW.
Yeah. I feel like you just said, and Hunter knows how to talk. He knows how to talk, and people already seen what wonders he could do with anyone. He could turn whoever he wants to into a star, and he definitely has proven that. Mm-hmm. So it wouldn't take very much to get people he's already on their good side with back on his side. Mm-hmm. But since we're on the topic of the Mae Young Classic, some interesting news broke out last night. So Brandy wants to, or has been, allegedly in the Performance Center. And since we're on the topic of the Mae Young Classic, I was thinking if they really wanted to make Brandy come back as a wrestler, because I read up about her. She doesn't mind being a valet, but she does actually care to want to be a wrestler. She genuinely is trying to be a wrestler. She knows she's not very good at it, but you could tell that the girl's trying. Right. She may be cringy. Okay. We did not forget about that open mic night.
She's a black. No.
And yeah.
I'm
we did
a
not
black.
Forget that. And she might have been.
Yeah. She was wilding.
She might be a hot ass mess when it came to AEW. Similar to how Cody was a bit of a mess over there. However, something about her would fit just perfectly. Mm-hmm. In a place as messy as WWE, where she could kind of bring that and maybe tone it down because, there's still TV 14 at the moment.
Yeah.
But I think if she seriously wanted to come back as a competitor and she wanted to be isolated from her husband, I think that is a fantastic way to introduce Brandy, because you could actually sit there and watch her progress in the ring. That's the most lovely thing about the Mae Young Classic. Yeah. Because you get all different types of breeds. You get people who have been on the indie scene for a couple of years. Some people that only been wrestling for 6 months. Some people that just decided to just fill out a job application on a fluke, and they just showed up here. You know what I mean?
Right. Literally just by chance.
So I feel like that'd be the most intriguing way for us to actually give Brandy a second chance. Mm-hmm. And we could watch her growth in just the ring, if that's what she chooses to do.
Absolutely,
because she may want to be treated like a Naomi, where we know that yes, she is married to Jimmy in real life, but we just rarely see them, cross paths when it comes to TV. But we just know, and she's just her own person, and she's isolated, and she's doing what she's doing. She may want to do that. Or, again, she may want to come back and she may want to valet, but also be like a little Zelina Vega, where she may throw in a few moves here and there to help out Cody. But I don't really see Cody needing that, because, it's fucking Cody Rhodes.
Yeah, it's Cody Rhodes.
One of the greatest wrestlers on the planet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't see him needing to do that. And he's a babyface at the moment. So, again, why would he need to do that?
Right.
But I would love to see her involved in the WWE. Even though she is messy, she's tone deaf as hell. She's not self-aware by any means. That would work. And with how messy and how chaotic this business is, you have to think about it for a moment.
Mika says she's tone deaf.
You may just hate her for the right reason. She is tone deaf.
She is. To an extent, she is. I'm not going to lie.
But she would make a perfect heel because she's so tone deaf.
Yo, that would be a fantastic gimmick. Like racially insensitive.
You could flip that.
What?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
That makes sense. That definitely makes sense.
And this is the right company to
That's
take
the
that.
right time.
This whole company is already.
They're already there.
You see
They
what
already
I mean?
did it in real life.
Yes, they've been racially insensitive for all these years. What's the
Right.
difference if you bought in Brandy?
Right. And what's the difference
I
if you
mean-
just made it into a legit gimmick? Like, just put it on screen what
Thank
everybody's
you.
thinking already. So,
Thank
Like-
you. The owner of this company, the CEO, wore a do-rag and you said the N-word. Like, what's the difference if Brandy comes in
bro,
here?
I will never get over the fact that Vince had a do-rag era. Like, not like one time he just popped out. Vince had a do-rag era. I'm not over that. Like, really was holding the ECW belt, do-rag, like, so, like, it just makes sense for them to go this route. But that just really brought back 2007. Like, he really ran into Trump and was like, I'm black now. It's like, what? like, when did you become the oppressed, sir? Like, dog.
Don't get me started.
Nah, dog. We're not gonna. No, the way. Please, I don't even want to talk about. And that was funny because that do-rag era was before he actually said the N-word on television. And
then Booker T and Charmel's reaction.
Charmel's reaction. Oh my God, dog. Like,
I know he did not just say what I thought
you just said. Right. Nah, I'm weak. Nah. But I like going back to what were we talking about? Yeah. The racially insensitive thing,
What do you
Brandy.
think about Brandy?
So Brandy Rhodes. So remember a couple episodes ago we were talking about people that have that WWE polish on them. It's hard for them to kind of navigate and be anywhere else. I think that that's the case with Cody and Brandy. Cody more than Brandy because Cody was obviously a more on-screen character than Brandy. But I think that when they were in AEW, they were trying to do WWE-esque things. They were trying to do WWE-esque TV 14 things. That's essentially what they wanted to do. Like, I want to be able to have the polished promo, the fancy belt, the pyro entrance, all the glam and glitz that comes with WWE, but I just wanted to cuss a little more and do some a little more extreme things. That's what they wanted in AEW, in addition to the creative freedom. Now that they got that in WWE, I think that they're going to thrive. So as far as Brandy being on screen and her returning to the Mae Young Classic, I think that would be perfect. Because like you said, one of the beauties of the Mae Young Classic is watching someone progress through each match and seeing their growth and seeing their development. So if Brandy is serious about getting back in the ring, I think that the Mae Young Classic would be a perfect place to kind of re-debut her. I wouldn't be surprised to see her kind of show up at like a house show. She was already, one of my friends literally just texted me talking about what's Vince McMahon doing now. I'll put you on later, bro. But I think that Brandy's gonna pop up at like a house show because she's already doing matches in the PC on Fridays. Because I think that was part of the report was that, she's doing these Friday matches at the PC, which is kind of like a time for people to get their reps in and kind of, show off what they had and the progress that they had. So I wouldn't be surprised if a house show was next. But I do see that as an avenue for Brandy to come back.
I thought about something. The Rock's daughter, she was on a few house shows and she was doing something in NXT or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
You think that she would go in the Mae Young Classic? You think that Hunter would throw her in there?
Absolutely.
Or he would just take his time with introducing her?
I think that she would be put in the Mae Young Classic because I feel like Hunter's version of WWE is very wrestling centric. I feel like she's going to start her off in the Mae Young Classic because she's a new one. She's a new woman when it comes to WWE, when it comes to NXT. And I feel like that's a great way of just introducing her as a legitimate competitor. I feel like all of the women that we've been introduced to, that we've fallen in love with, were introduced via competition. Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, Toni Storm. All those women have been introduced via competition and have kind of had their origin story in the Mae Young Classic. We look at Bianca Belair, who was this fresh, athletically gifted rookie who lost in the second or third round, and Katz was literally like, yo, you need to sign her. And that put a chip on her shoulder. That loss put a chip on her shoulder. That was the foundation of the EST character, right? Same thing with Rhea Ripley, right? We go into the Mae Young Classic and, her injury not her injury, but she was wrestling Tegan Knox. Tegan Knox gets injured.
Well, that shit was so funny.
Rhea Ripley kind of looks at her in character and was like, and that set the tone. That set the tone for Rhea Ripley. So when you think
she became like this whole dickhead. Right. Oh my God, that era was so funny.
It was so funny.
I'm sorry. Sidebar. The funniest thing she ever pulled was for Halloween. She put on a knee brace.
It was Tegan Knox.
I was like, yeah, she's out of pocket.
But that's the thing.
Why does she do this?
But like, think about it. That's the thing that set the tone. So it's like, I feel like when you're introduced to these women, you have to give them an origin story. Like that's one of the things they kind of talk about in wrestling is what's your why? Like, sell me on your why. What motivates you to do what you do? And I feel like what better way to give a character motivation than by putting them in a situation that can either motivate them to aspire to be something or can give them motivation going forward outside of that context. So I do think that The Rock's daughter being introduced in that manner is like the perfect way for her to debut. So, but what about you? How do you feel about it?
About her being introduced in that way?
In that way, yeah.
Oh, I would love that because I actually feel sorry for her because, and I blame Charlotte for this because, all right, why do I blame Charlotte? Charlotte took on her daddy's whole persona.
Yeah.
Except that, her daddy did it well and then she didn't. So people are expecting her to come in and try to see if she could be, a female counterpart to the most electrifying man in sports entertainment, which nobody can do. I'm sorry, nobody can do. Even the greatest, the great can't do it. Chris Jericho is one of the greatest mic talkers ever out there, and he's still not The Rock.
Right.
Like, and they're neck and neck with how good they are and how they could just pull a crown. He's still not it.
Right.
So I feel bad for her because if she tries to even go in with like leading that, yeah, I am The Rock's daughter, then we're gonna expect that out of her.
Right.
Because again, Charlotte did that. Charlotte couldn't even let go of the fucking robe, and it's been how many years now? All right, like
every time
the fucking theme music and everything. Sorry,
you're good. No, anytime I think of Charlotte, I was just thinking about how Nia really put the beats on that girl. Like Nia put the beats on her.
Bro.
Yo, bing, bing. What is you talking about? Yo, like I was like, oh, shit. But keep going about. Keep going. Keep going.
I never stand Nia so hard.
Keep going. Keep going.
I never stand her so hard. I'm sorry.
You good. You good. You good.
But yes, when it comes to Charlotte, she lacks a personality, so she kind of literally copy and pasted what her daddy's doing, and we expected some character to come out of her because that was the biggest selling point to Rick, like how much energy he brought to the microphone or character that he brought into the ring. You know what I mean?
Right.
He did a lot of little things that no one else could make iconic. You know what I mean? And that's the same thing with The Rock, and it just came off to them natural.
Right.
And I see why she came in with a name change immediately. And I also see why she gets irritated when people ask her questions about her father. Because it's like, you guys are already trying to
put us in a box or like put us neck and neck.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're also trying to size her up because again, she's not dumb. She watches the show too. She sees what we do to Charlotte every week, how I chew her out every single week.
You.
She's a smart woman.
Sis said, I've seen this girl Monique. I've seen this girl Monique chew up Charlotte. I'm not trying to be that bitch. So I'm just gonna change my name. She's gonna change my name. Who's The Rock's daughter? Not me. Not me.
Literally, but she's very intelligent. I love that she changed her name, and she's coming in with just trying to just be herself, and she wants us to get used to that. She's coming in there, and she's like, I'm Ava Raine.
Right.
Get used to it.
Right.
Yes, I am off camera, The Rock's daughter, but like when the mic's and the camera's on, like we forget about that, and this is who you're getting.
Right.
Okay. So I feel like if we were to get her in the Mae Young Classic and we could hear her version of what she wants to be presented in her origin story and her video package, I feel like that would be excellent for setting the tone so that she doesn't even have to run into that issue. Because if Vince was running this, Vince would have forced her into that box.
Right.
Immediately.
Absolutely.
And try to get her to, because in his head, he would think that it would get her over because she shares The Rock's blood.
Right.
Well, in all actuality, you're setting this girl for failure.
Right.
Because she knows that she doesn't have the qualities of her father. Nobody does.
Nobody does.
The Rock is one of a kind.
Right.
So I would love to watch to see what she has learned in all her years on I don't think she was in the Indies. She's just been in wrestling school, from my knowledge.
Right.
Between the wrestling schools and the PC, I would love to see everything that she learned. I would love to see what her personality is like, because I don't think anyone knows who she really is besides being The Rock's daughter, and
Absolutely.
her being pretty private and very invasive. Any questions in regards of, the connection to her father. So I think that is a brilliant way to introduce her. I'm very interested in seeing what she could do and who she is, and just knowing Simone Johnson, just as Simone Johnson. I would love to just know who she is, right, and what else does she do besides that confinement. So yeah, totally love it.
I love it as well. I think that she's gonna be great whenever she pops out. But man, I hope that WWE actually decides to do a Mae Young Classic. If y'all trying to see another Mae Young Classic, another Evolution 2, let us know via whatever you're watching this on. Now, I think that concludes the show. But there was a one more question that I had, but I don't think it's going to be relevant. It was, talking about the WWE mid-card titles, as far as the identity for each championship.
Well, expand on it.
So I feel like when we talk about like championships, every championship has an identity. And I noticed that like with increased focus on the titles and it actually being like given prestige, like obviously you have the US title, you have the Intercontinental title, but it's like, oh, one's the workhorse championship. But what does that mean for the other championship? Or that championship is the workhorse title. And then there's this other championship. I was going to say, what should the identities be for the US and the Intercontinental Championship, if any?
I mean, you kind of worded it perfectly. I like the fact that with Hunter being in control, you definitely do see that they're being taken seriously, if not more seriously, from just a couple weeks we've been watching. Mm-hmm. They have their own identity, like you just said, but they almost feel like they're more important, more interesting mm-hmm. than the world titles, which I love that for them, because I can only imagine what it's like being a WWE talent and then knowing that you're being thrown into the mid cards, and then the mid cards kind of almost translate into, all right, like you're going for the jobber title. Like you might as well go for the 24/7 belt
right.
while you're at it.
Right.
Because they don't put any compelling storylines behind the mid-card titles. They hot potato the belt to the point where no one really cares about it, or they'll slap it on one person for months, but then they don't really defend it very often. I love the fact that Hunter's taking it seriously, and he is making it a point that, hey, like these guys matter too, and so do these belts. They have history, and we are not going to take away any of their prestiges. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty much, I guess, my little take on it.
Makes sense. I definitely hear you out on that. I think I was thinking about the IC title and the US title, and I was also thinking about Hunter's kind of fascination with the old territories. Like if you notice, like with NXT, he was trying to develop a territorial system, like globally. I say that to say that I think that the titles should kind of have like some stipulations to them. Like if in the NWA, there used to be kind of like this thing with the TV title, which was if you defend it 10 times, you get a shot at the world title. Then they also do stuff where like, well, in old territories, what they used to do was every territory had a national champion, right? Had a US champion. And what would happen is if you're the US champion, when the world champion comes to your town, you automatically get first dibs.
I like that. I like that very much, actually.
So I was like, I feel like the US championship, I feel like, especially now that WWE owns all this IP, how dope would it be for them to be like, well, if you defend the title like 6 times successfully, you get a shot at the WWE championship. Or
I never thought about that, and I love that because like it's like a stepping stone.
Exactly.
Because like I always thought about that to myself, but I never like quite figured out a way to make it make sense. And I'm so happy you just brought it up because it's just like, all right, if someone has been holding their own in this division, how do they move up to a world title?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
I never was able to make that connection on how do you cross that bridge. It's just like, all right, that person has been defending their asses off. Or what happens when they lose the belt, and how do they get themselves to get into the loop of the world title, or where they could even be in a situation where they could possibly be a dual champion.
Right.
So that's actually like, that's brilliant. I didn't even know that was a thing. So thank you for informing me of that.
No problem. And I think that it will also be good for storytelling, because imagine the stipulation is if you defend the U.S. title 6 times and, you know, successfully, then that means that you get elevated to this place of where you can challenge for the world title. But like in your 6th defense, like an old enemy comes back and disrupts the match. Now it's like I was this close to getting a shot at WWE title, and then I just lost everything. But now you have that feud, and then that could be a stepping stone for him to get a U.S. title shot. You know what I mean? There's so many ways. You know what I mean? I be thinking of shit. But I feel like with these identities, but going from that, because those are just ideas that I had for the championship. I feel like the Intercontinental Championship should be like not just for international superstars, but I feel like superstars who have an international resume. Like, I feel like if you are a guy that's competed in New Japan or Rev Pro or has been a world travel champion, I feel like you should challenge for the Intercontinental Championship, because I feel like in addition to a lot of charismatic champions holding that belt, that Intercontinental Championship represents, you know, I think it's like the North America and Europe. So it's like you want to be the best of those continents. And so it only makes sense that you challenge for that title. But I feel like the U.S. title can be, I feel like the U.S. title can be a title that can be considered a workhorse championship, but have a little bit, not just prestige to it, but has some stipulations to it where you can challenge for the WWE title. And it can also be a title that pays tribute to the United States territories and, you know, companies. Like, I think that if you were in TNA, Impact, Ring of Honor, you should go for the U.S. title, right? I feel like the U.S. title could pay homage. Can pay homage to those.
I love the way your brain works.
I be thinking or whatever. You feel me? But I
need to hire you, bitch.
Listen, that would be conflict of interest, because this is first. But I think that they can utilize their championships to kind of pay homage to different wrestling companies. Even if there was like U.S. title matches and the champion gets to decide the rules, and then he can take like the rules from like a promotion that he was in. So say if there was like a Ring of Honor guy who challenged for the U.S. title and he like was the champion, and like let's just say Ring of Honor former champion Samoa Joe. Let's just say Samoa Joe had the U.S. championship. He was in WWE, and you say, okay, well, this U.S. title match is a pure rules match. So now he's taking like the Ring of Honor rules and he's using that to pay homage to Ring of Honor. So I think that would be a great way to kind of give each title an identity. But it was just a little idea, some stuff that I had in my head.
No, that's actually a fantastic idea. I hope Hunter's hearing this.
Yeah. Hunter, I hope you're hearing this.
Hunter.
Pick up the phone, all right? Run culture the check, okay? But I think that concludes today's show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We're going to be back next week. Whole new slate of topics. Be sure to rate the podcast, give it 5 stars, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for tuning and tapping in, and we'll see you guys next week.